Why does the smartest person in the room always blow up their account first? Not the reckless one, not the gambler, not the guy who YOLOs his rent money into a meme coin at 2 a.m. The smart one, the disciplined one, the one who read every book, back-tested every strategy, journaled every trade, and still ends up staring at a liquidated account, wondering what just happened. If you've ever felt that exact confusion, like you did everything right and the market still humiliated you, stay with me. Because today, we're not talking about strategy. We're not talking about indicators or entries or risk-reward ratios. We're talking about a personality type, a very specific psychological wiring that exists in almost every trader who blows up. Not once, but again and again and again. And by the end of this video, you might realize it's you. Let's decode it. Psychologists have a term for people like this: high functioning, high achieving, often more intelligent than average. The kind of person who excelled in school, excelled at work, maybe even excelled in sports or business. Someone used to winning through effort. Someone whose entire identity was built on one quiet belief: if I work hard enough, if I'm smart enough, I control the outcome. That belief built their whole life, and that exact belief is what destroys them in the market. Because the market doesn't care about effort. It doesn't reward intelligence. It doesn't operate on merit. It operates on probability, randomness, and patience. Three things this personality type has almost no tolerance for. Let's break down exactly how this plays out. 5 psychological patterns. Watch how many of these describe you.
Point 1. The intolerance of ambiguity. There's a concept in psychology called intolerance of ambiguity. It describes people who experience genuine discomfort, almost physical discomfort, when a situation doesn't have a clear, certain answer. Most high achievers have this trait in spades. It's actually what made them successful. In school, there was always a right answer. In their career, there was always a clear metric of success: effort in, result out. Clean, predictable, controllable. Then they enter trading, and suddenly there is no clean answer. A perfect setup can lose. A terrible entry can win. The same pattern that worked 10 times in a row fails on the 11th, for no visible reason at all. For most people, this is simply frustrating. But for the high achiever, this uncertainty feels like an attack on their identity. Their brain screams for resolution. And when the brain can't tolerate ambiguity, it does something dangerous. It manufactures false certainty. They convince themselves this next trade is the sure thing. They convince themselves the pattern always plays out this way. They increase size because this time, they're certain. Uncertainty is unbearable to them, so they lie to themselves just to make it bearable. And that lie is the first crack in the account. Point 2. Ego fusion with being right. Here's something almost nobody talks about. For most of these traders, being wrong doesn't feel like a normal mistake. It feels like a threat to who they are. Psychologists call this ego fusion, when your sense of self becomes fused with your performance. You're not someone who made a bad trade. You are a bad trader. There's no separation between the action and the identity. This is why you'll see brilliant, successful people, doctors, engineers, business owners, sit in a losing trade far longer than logic allows. Not because they don't see the stop-loss level, they see it perfectly. But closing that trade means admitting they were wrong. And admitting they were wrong feels on a subconscious level like admitting they are wrong, as a person, as an identity. So instead of cutting the loss at -1%, they hold it to -5, then -10. Not because they lack knowledge, because their ego is fighting a battle their account can't afford. The market isn't testing their strategy, it's testing their identity. And most people would rather lose money than lose their sense of self. Point 3. The revenge spiral. Now, here's where it gets destructive. Once this personality type takes an ego-driven loss, something predictable happens. Shame. Shame is different from guilt. Guilt says, I did something bad. Shame says, I am something bad. And shame demands immediate relief. The nervous system cannot sit in shame. It needs an exit, fast. So what do? They re-enter the market. Not because there's a setup, not because there's an edge, but because winning the next trade feels like it will erase the shame of the last one. This is the revenge trade. And it's rarely about the money. It's an attempt to restore self-worth in real time. Here's the tragic part. The size usually increases because a small win won't cancel out big shame. Only a big win will. So the position gets larger, the stop gets wider, the emotional stakes get higher, and the account gets closer to zero. This is why so many traders don't blow up on their worst trade. They blow up on the trade right after their worst trade, the revenge trade, the one fueled by shame, not strategy. Point 4. Illusion of control and overconfidence bias. This personality type has spent their entire life being rewarded for taking control. Study harder, get better grades. Work longer hours, get promoted. Every domain of their life reinforced one lesson: control equals results. Psychologists call the belief that you have more control over outcomes than you actually do the illusion of control. It's one of the most well-documented biases in behavioral psychology, and traders with this personality type are especially vulnerable to it. They start believing they can control the market the same way they controlled their exam results or their sales targets. So when they have a winning streak, even a short, lucky one, they don't attribute it to variance. They attribute it to skill, their control. This creates a dangerous emotional high. Confidence turns into overconfidence. Overconfidence turns into oversized positions. And oversized positions, combined with a market that owes nobody anything, eventually meet a losing streak that wipes out weeks or months of gains in a single session. The illusion of control feels amazing right up until the moment it doesn't. And when it breaks, it usually breaks the account with it. Point 5. Identity fusion. When trading becomes self-worth. This is the deepest layer, and honestly, the most important one to understand. For most high achievers, their entire life has been a performance measured by outcomes, grades, promotions, titles, bank balances. Somewhere along the way, without realizing it, they stopped separating what they do from who they are. So when they start trading, it's never just trading. It becomes the new arena where their worth gets decided. A green day means they're capable, disciplined, intelligent. A red day means they're careless, weak, a failure. This emotional fusion is exhausting, and it's also exactly why they can't follow simple rules, like cutting losses early or sizing down after a drawdown. Because those rules require emotional detachment, and detachment feels impossible when your identity is on the line with every single trade. The traders who last in this business are the ones who eventually separate their identity from their equity curve. The ones who don't stay stuck in this loop. Win, feel worthy. Lose, feel worthless. Win again to feel worthy again. Over and over, until the account can't survive the emotional roller coaster anymore. So here's the uncomfortable truth this video keeps circling back to. The personality type that blows up every single account isn't lazy. It isn't undisciplined in the traditional sense. It isn't even unintelligent. If anything, it's the opposite. Driven, hardworking, high-achieving people who simply never learned how to separate their self-worth from an outcome they cannot fully control. The market doesn't punish stupidity. It punishes ego. It punishes the need for certainty. It punishes the belief that effort should always equal reward. If any of these 5 patterns hit close to home, the discomfort with uncertainty, the ego tied to being right, the shame-driven revenge trades, the illusion of control, the identity fused with the equity curve, you're not broken. You're just wired the way most high achievers are wired. The difference between the traders who blow up forever and the ones who eventually become consistent isn't talent, it's self-awareness. The moment you can watch a losing trade and think, that was a bad trade, instead of, I am bad, everything starts to shift. The moment you can sit in uncertainty without needing to force a fake sense of control, your position sizing starts to make sense again. The moment you stop needing the market to validate your identity, you stop needing it to be right, and you start letting it simply be what it is: random, probabilistic, and completely indifferent to your ego. That shift doesn't happen overnight, but it starts with exactly what you just did: watching this, recognizing the pattern, and being honest enough to admit which parts described you. If this video called you out a little, that's a good sign. That means you're already ahead of most people who will keep blowing up accounts without ever asking why. Stick around on this channel, because we're going to keep going deeper into the psychology behind these patterns, the real reasons traders self-sabotage, and how to actually rewire them. If this resonated with you, subscribe to The Inner Edge, so the next time your mind tries to convince you it's different this time, you'll already know exactly what's really going on. I'll see you in the next one.